But we begin tonight with an investigation that confirms something that a lot of Americans have had a Scooby sense about for quite a while now. Since the political fight over health care has taken the recent turns that it has taken, it has seemed at times that while there was a fight going on about health care reform, there was not actually a debate going on. That sense started in the third week of July, when Roy Blunt, the top Republican in the House for health care policy, announced that the Republicans would not be introducing any health care policy. That sense was furthered when strategy memos for right-wing protesters attending town hall meetings about health care gave specific instructions for how those protesters could interrupt those meetings, how they could try to rattle the members of Congress leading those meetings, how they could shout out and then sit down to derail the meeting, to try to get it off course, not to get a specific point across or to try to be persuasive in a debate. That sense that this was a fight but not a debate was furthered still when Democratic Congressman Brad Miller, who decided not to have town hall meetings after getting death threats, decided instead to offer his constituents the chance to meet with him one-on-one, to meet with their member of Congress one-on-one so they could tell him their views on health care policy and so they could hear his. Quite an opportunity, right? If you care about health care policy? Yeah, except the resounding response from his constituents opposed to health care reform was no. We don't actually want one-on-one meetings with our member of Congress. We'd prefer a town hall meeting. The better to get on the YouTube yelling like other like-minded people. Who cares about policy? Who cares about health care, really? It's felt for weeks now like the conservative reaction to the prospect of health care reform has not been seen by conservatives as an opportunity to debate what to do about health care in the U.S. There is one side wanting to talk about that, but the other side, the conservative side, just wants the whole discussion to not happen at all. It's not a fight over how to fix the American healthcare system. It's people who want to fix the healthcare system versus people who don't even want this conversation to happen and who want to make sure that nothing happens to the current healthcare system. Today we have confirmation that what it has seemed like is exactly what it is. Greg Sargent at the website The Plumb Line uncovered details of a conference call that was held last week among some of the organizers of the town hall disruptions. According to someone who was on that call, the explicit goal of the disruptions, as stated by the protest organizers, is, quote, not to find a solution to the healthcare crisis. The moderator of the conference call, again, this is a conference call of the organizers of the town hall protests. The moderator of the call said, quote, the goal is not compromise, and any bill coming out this year would be a failure for us. Yet another organizer put it even more bluntly, saying, quote, we have an opportunity to realistically kill Obama's agenda. That conference call was brought to you by a group called the Tea Party Patriots. The Tea Party Patriots sounds like a pretty grassroots organization, right? Probably made up of just normal folks looking for a way to organize. Well, if you tootle over on over to the Tea Party Patriots website, you will see that the group bills itself as the, quote, official grassroots American movement. It's official. They say so. Scroll down to the bottom of the Tea Party Patriots website and you'll see their list of partners. Official grassroots partners, no doubt. Among them, an organization that's been popping up over and over and over again in connection to these town hall disruptions. It's a group called FreedomWorks. FreedomWorks has acknowledged that it is a national co-partner of the Tea Party Patriots. In fact, when the Tea Party Patriots organized a trip to Washington, D.C. last month, it was FreedomWorks that provided them with prepared packets of information and who briefed them on a typical Capitol Hill visit. Last week, FreedomWorks came out with an August recess action kit, directing people to town hall events and arming them with questions to ask. Recently, FreedomWorks officials have been going on the TV machine to brag about, in their words, blowing up town hall events and calling on those who attend them to be, quote, aggressive. FreedomWorks is a Washington, D.C.-based advocacy group that is chaired by the former Republican House Majority Leader, Dick Armey. In addition to being the head of FreedomWorks, Mr. Armey is a senior policy advisor at a Washington, D.C.-based lobbying firm called DLA Piper. Among DLA Piper's clients and former clients who just might be interested in what happens with health care reform, Pharmaceutical maker Bristol Myers Squibb, who paid DLA Piper through the end of 2008. Medical device supplier SleepMed Incorporated, who also ended their arrangement with Piper just last year. Healthcare provider Metropolitan Health Networks, and the pharmaceutical firm Medicines Company. Now, we mentioned Medicines Company on this program last week, and while they do acknowledge paying Dick Armey's legal firm for lobbying, they told us explicitly that the type of activities that FreedomWorks is engaged in now, with the shutting down of the debate over healthcare by shutting down town hall meetings about healthcare, this group, the Medicines Company, says that that is not at all what they were paying for. So the question is, why are DLA Piper's clients relevant? There appears to be some pretty good evidence that when you pay Dick Armey's lobbying firm, DLA Piper, you get what Dick Armey's grassroots organization, FreedomWorks, does. Take the American Council of Life Insurers, for example. According to government records, they hired DLA Piper in February of 2007. Within 6 months, they'd paid the lobbying firm $100,000. What else happened in that 6 months? You guessed it! Dick Armey's group, FreedomWorks, grassroots, remember, began lobbying Congress to deregulate the life insurance industry. You know, that all just happened to happen within the same 6 months. And of course, perhaps it is just mere coincidence that FreedomWorks happened to have a newfound ideological, purist, grassroots commitment to life insurance deregulation. At the same time, the American Council of Life Insurers hired Dick Armey's lobbying firm. It could just be a coincidence. Could be, right? Want one more? In 2006, DLA Piper began lobbying for the Senado de República, the Mexican Senate. The purpose of the lobbying, quote, enhancing U.S.-Mexico relations. Coincidentally, around the same time, FreedomWorks began promoting itself as, quote, one of the few conservative organizations willing to aggressively promote meaningful immigration reform. Another coinkydink. It's very grassroots. In 2004, when President George W. Bush was trying to privatize Social Security, a FreedomWorks employee was introduced at a White House economic conference as a single mom from Iowa who supported President Bush's efforts. The president's budget director even singled out that FreedomWorks employee as one of the regular folks who was behind the whole idea to privatize Social Security. This is how FreedomWorks does their work. They try to create the impression that they're just regular grassroots Americans without any financial or political interests in the outcome of these policy fights. On the board of directors of FreedomWorks, you'll find Richard Stevenson. In addition to being director of FreedomWorks, a group that's actively trying to derail healthcare reform, Richard Stevenson is also the founder and chairman of Cancer Treatment Centers of America, Incorporated. He's also president of International Capital and Management Company, which runs a hospital consulting company. Totally disinterested party, right? Then there's the president of FreedomWorks, a gentleman named Matt Kibbe. Before joining FreedomWorks, Mr. Kibbe was the former senior economist for the Republican National Committee. Before that, he was chief of staff for Republican Congressman Dan Miller of Florida. Republican officials and the health insurance industry and for-profit hospital consulting firms and for-profit cancer treatment centers and all of these other people have every right to participate in this debate. Of course they do. They have every right to go to these events and yell no and say that there's no reason to reform health care. They even have the right to scream at people who actually want to talk about the fact that there might be need to reform health care. That is their constitutional right. They are Americans like any of us. Nobody is suggesting that they can't participate in this debate in the way that they are. What is dishonest is to do it in a way that disguises who they are, that disguises their role in it, that disguises their financial role in it. Washington lobbyists and healthcare executives and former Republican Party officials have just as much a right to shout down the policy debate about healthcare reform as anyone else does. These folks have just as much a right to try to derail this entire process as anyone else does. But we have the right to know who they are and who is paying them for their efforts. These guys are pros. This is an industry. This is Beltway politics being organized and played out in town halls across the country. And as we have said before, and I fear we will have to continue saying and saying and saying again, this should be reported as such.